we
How
do.
you doing, mate?
Doing really good. How about you?
Not bad, not bad. Having a bit of a rush day here, but it's all good.
Terrific. Okay. Well, if you're all comfortable and ready to go, we'll jump right in.
Yep, absolutely. Carry on, sir.
Well, firstly, congratulations on your new record, and it must feel great to have something new out there.
Oh, it always is. Yeah, and the fact that it's just come together so smoothly. It was probably the most enjoyable thing I've recorded, actually, because I suppose there's a tad selfishness in there, but when you get to do things your own way, and without the intervention of other people, kind of telling you what to do, and I suppose I got to that ripe old age in my life where people seem to trust me, and I can get on with making my own records. It's really good.
Has this new record given you a renewed enthusiasm to get back out there on the road and present something new?
Kind of, but the problem is that whenever I go out on the road, everybody expects to hear the old hits, and so you have to kind of temper any new show, and we're putting that together at the moment with the fact that you can't disappoint people because they want to hear the hits, So then comes the problem of how do you pack everything in. So I think we managed to do about 4 songs from the new album in the show, and which is probably enough actually.
Yeah, it must...
because it's very hard. People they still want the breadth of your career. I think that's always going to happen when you've had a few albums under the belt, and there've been a lot of successes there. But I still somehow find ways to even play songs from my last proper studio album, Voice in My Head, and then there's a couple of songs, Pop Life and Saturday Girl, that we put in because they're damn good songs, So you find a way of exposing everything, Plus also the song I wrote for Cliff Richard, Dreaming, and things like that. They're all in the show as well as the new stuff.
There's a great diversity of styles on this record. As a listener to music yourself, is that what you like to hear on an album?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm always kind of conscious that I'm trying to get back. When I listen to an album, I'm trying to meet that buzz when I first heard albums like, say, the first Bob Dylan album or Sgt. Pepper, where you get to try to track 7 or track 9, and it's for the benefit of Mr. Kite, and that's a damn good song all by itself, even along with the some that are thought stronger. And the fun that I have with albums like this is that to me every track is a standout, and I put the same effort into each one because that's the way that I make records. But people will choose their own favourites, and just before Christmas we went off to Europe and stayed. This is my partner Donatella and manager. We stayed with her Italian family out there, and they came back with a set of favourites that would be different to the set of favourites that were in England, and as different to the set of favourites that have been chosen by some Asian people that I met just recently, being in Singapore and Kuala Lumpur and trying the album out on then. And then it changes again to Australia. So it's interesting how different people pick up on different things. So I hope that all I've done in a way is cover the waterfront. I've covered all the possible areas of where people would like things or not like them. I mean, in England, for instance, they instantly picked up, those that heard it, and it's only a preview, that The Wrong Man was all about Julian Assange. But nobody seems to have picked that up in Australia yet, And yet he's an Australian, and for me, every year he's my vote of Australian of the Year. So some people maybe it's the climate that we're in, and it's the world we're in now, and the way that music has gone. People listen sometimes really to stuff that can be very provocative, and yet it glazes over them. It goes over their heads, and yet sometimes they can listen to very simple things and get great meaning out of that. So I think that the way we listen to things, probably because of the modern world and the internet and the short attention span and the short lines availability and Twitter, maybe things have changed the way we listen to things. I don't know, but it's interesting for me to fire a salvo across those gunnels, and see what people think.
You're hitting the road for a pretty extensive Australian tour, and I guess with Australia being your base now, you can tour the country in a far more expansive way that you did in the past.
I mean, look, I just put forward the premise to the tour to the people I was working with, and they came up with all these dates, and it's fantastic. I mean, the only thing I said was that I'd like to do one show in each state, and it's become this. So it's quite nice. We're covering every state, so at least we got a Darwin show, and for Northern Territory, and just about everywhere is covered. We're off to. On Wednesday, we go to Port Lincoln. We open in Port Lincoln. That's the opening of the tour in South Australia. And then, a few days later, we follow up with a week in WA. So, and then we hit Victoria, and then New South Wales, and then Queensland, and on we go. So at least I'm covering everywhere, which is great.
They're not all entirely new songs on the album, are they? Some were written in the past? We all make mistakes. Sometimes things go wrong. Came from 1975, and it was a song that I actually wrote, and it was in a bunch of songs that I took off to America to play to Richard Perry, thinking that he'd really like them. But no, he went in a different direction and wanted to go he saw me as a more soulful singer, so it never got used. And then about 4 years ago, I discovered it on a tape, on a box of tapes, just looking through some old stuff, and there it was on a cassette, and I played it, and I went, my God, forgotten all about that. That's still good. So I then took it to the band, and we tried it with the band, and everybody seemed to like playing it. So it was a shoe-in for the album, And there was a song called One Green World that I originally wrote in 1992. Very disgusted at what I saw as kind of like a bit of an abuse of the planet and a bit of abuse of the natural world at that time. And boy, has that become more prevalent now. Yeah.
So, sometimes it's interesting. You can write down ideas and write songs and find out that they're actually kind of, they're more applicable to today. Likewise, about 6 years ago, I wrote Revolution of the Heart, and that really sort of seems to be a song that is very relevant today as well. So he wrote that with Albert Hammond, and he did an album entitled Revolution of the Heart with a bunch of songs that we've written together. And, suddenly that's kind of really relevant again, so I thought it was my time to do my version of it. And apparently he really likes it, so that's good.
There's a lot of fun on the record as well, and a song that will certainly appeal to all the seniors out there. How did we get so old?
Well, that's that moment, when you look in the mirror and you're feeling really young and you're feeling really vibrant. Your health is basically good, still got your hair, and you suddenly look in the mirror and you go, who the hell is that guy? And so which kind of happens to all of us, but it's also the fun of, there are kind of some cheeky things that you can do when you get to, to your senior age. And I love, going to Coles supermarket and going into the shopping centre and finding that the closest car park is for seniors, and I can actually go in there. Every now and then there'll be some little woman who says, "You can't park in there, young man." But and then I show them my driving license, and they go, "Oh, right, carry on." So I'm quite lucky, really, to be looking younger than I am in some ways. But yeah, there's always that shock of when you actually kind of. There's a moment at the end of the day when the bones start creaking, and and these days I live in the Southern Highlands and in New South Wales, and I have to drive down here. And listen, I'm always pulling off for a nap halfway down. So honesty is honesty rules. As the song says, hindsight is worth a pot of gold.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the musicians on the album. You've got a fine array of musicians behind you there. Yeah,
and we've got three-fourths of them are on the tour. Johnny Salerno can't make it, unfortunately, on the drums, but he's an amazing player. And I guess it came from sitting with all of them on the Good Times tour. I bought, with Rich Clapton and Russell Morris and Joe Camilleri and myself last year. I brought Bill Risby in with to the band because he always works with me. He's just the most incredible keyboard player, probably the best in Australia, pianist, and he's my right-hand man, really. So he was in there, and then, we met Johnny, and then Mitch Kearns on the bass, who's Russell Morris's producer, of course, as everybody knows, and boy, have they sold some records, and has Mitch done a good job there, and very proud to say Mitch is my bass player and also helped me record the album. And then we had the added bonus of one of the most incredibly gifted and natural guitarists I've ever worked with in my life. I mean,
you just put a guitar into his hands and he plays the right. I never tell him what to do. Danny Spencer is just amazing. So, you know, and so now I'm touring with Danny and Mitch and Bill Risby, and Adrian Violi has come in and played drums with us, who the same drummer who's on Russell's albums, and he's a super player as well. So I've just spent 2 days in Melbourne with them all, and came back yesterday morning, and wow, what a band. It's amazing. But we've just rehearsed 3.5 hours of material. So how the hell we're going to fit that all in, I don't know. But we'll have to kind of, I think we'll have to rotate the songs.
You mentioned Albert Hammond. There's 4 songs on the album co-written with Albert. How did the collaborative process work between the two of you?
Well, we've known each other for many years. I mean, ever since I picked up When I Need You, that he wrote, and I think that's when I was first introduced to him. But of course, I knew his songs before that. I mean, he wrote songs like Little Arrows for Leapy Lee back in the '60s when I, you know, and songs for Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch before writing Never Rains in California and The Air That I Breathe and all those classics, you know. So I knew those songs and I knew him, but I didn't really ever think that I'd be recording an Albert Hammond song until I heard When I Need You. And Albert just has got one of those melodic gifts, rather like John Lennon and Paul McCartney, that sort of real natural gift, you know. Like Neil from Crowded House, you know, these guys are just instant melodic. And that's great for me because even though I write, you know, a lot of the songs by myself, as you can hear on the album, every now and then you put yourself with a great melodist, as I would call Albert, and it's a joy to just write lyrics for someone like that. Although I've got to say, the writing that I've done with Albert more recently has been both of us chipping in on the music and the lyrics. So Revolution of the Heart and Look Around, songs like that are very much 50-50 between us both doing both things, you know. So and that's a real honor for me because, you know, I my primary first thing I did was write words, you know. But now I find that my brain has kind of chipped into writing melodies, and it's nice that Albert accepts me in that vein, you know.
And another standout track on the album is Competing with a DJ, inspired by the bizarre event of an ARIA award going to the best live act for a spinning disc jockey.
Well, I kind of thought that was the final nail in the coffin, I suppose. But I mean, I work with a lot of DJs and I love them to death. And there's one guy I've written quite a lot of songs with recently. He, funnily enough, was the guy behind Thunder in My Heart, the remix. He wasn't DJ Mex, the guy on the label. I don't think he did anything. He's just a record company bloke who fancied being a star. But it's often like that in that world, you know. But there was a guy, a real mechanic behind the whole thing, and Lee Dagger is just an amazing mind and wonderful musician in that field. And so I work with him quite a lot. Unfortunately, the songs that we've done together don't really fit into the premise of this album, but I'll do some stuff with him in the future. I'll release some of the stuff we've done in the future, and so I've experienced working with a DJ. But the funny thing is, I think it gets to a point really when you realise you're loading in all the gear, and like it says in the, you know, getting the guys food and rooms and everything, and this guy just steams in with a box of records or even a USB stick under his arm, and that's all he has to do, you know. And of course, because he's getting the same fee as you, he can afford the driver and the luxuries and the better hotel room, you know.
Yeah.
This is the irony of our business. But like it says in the end, I think we'll win because human life cannot be replaced by USBs.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a bit of fun. Look, I do have a sense of humour, and I think that's what's kept me sane after all these years. And you'll hear the obvious Monty Python links in How Do We Get So Old, and yeah, there's a good bit of irony and self-deprecation as well in the album. But you know that's what you come up with when you've been around the grounds a little bit, you know.
Do you find your songwriter's radar is always still up to collecting ideas for songs?
Yeah, pretty much. I've got a bunch of themes that I didn't finish for the album. I'm not going to write a song about Tony Abbott. That would be a horrible thing to do. Because how could you write a song about hell? No, but I've got a song about the boat people, the asylum seekers, and I didn't finish that one quite in time, but you know, and it's all about migration and homeless people and people who, you know, absolutely feel the urge to go for a better life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, although that seems to be an anathema to our society, well, for some of us anyway. But so I thought that was quite an important thing. So, you know, look, I read the news and I see things. I mean, you'll have seen I made a track called No Fracking Way about the oil and gas industry and fracking, you know, which I think is an absolutely dreadful thing. I mean, you know, people suffering from terrible health problems and poisoned water on the way to all of us, you know. Yeah, there are concerns. There are things that kind of scratch my back, and I don't really want to be a writer of... I don't want to use my gifts in... I don't want to misuse them, you know. I mean, the people I admire are people like John Pilger, Tarek Ali, you know, people who really do something with their communication talents. And I'd like to be a journalist in music in a way, you know.
Yeah.
That's an important thing for me, to communicate things and to maybe raise concerns. And I've always had that social conscience. I suppose it comes from being a Dylan fan from the start, you know. So if I can use my wisdom and what I've learned and what I know about the world and how it works to pass things on, I sometimes get a bit bloody-minded about it, but I can subtly put it in there, you know, like The Wrong Man, you know, telling the story of Julian, which is to me one of the most misunderstood people of the last 50 years. But, you know, basically you have to realize that there's a massive propaganda machine against him, which has been running from the start. So almost everything we know about him has been collated, you know, from misinformation. So, and everything, you know, told about WikiLeaks is incorrect. So basically, I think that I could feel sometimes my career in my life, I've been corralled in the same way, you know, misunderstood and misinformation spread, and, you know, you can't really do anything about your Wikipedia entries, you know. So you're stuck with that. So I think that I'm probably writing about me as well.
Now, the record was mixed in the tiny town of Marburg in Queensland. Tell us about the facility there.
Yeah. Well, there's John Hudson who used to run Mayfair Studios with his wife Kate Hudson in England, and Mayfair was where Tina Turner recorded What's Love Got to Do with It, Don't Need Another Hero, all those records, and the Pink Floyd recorded a lot of albums there, and McCartney, and John produced Travis, and you know, the first Travis album, and Tears for Fears, and a lot of these massive 80s albums, including Live Aid. He was the engineer on Live Aid. So, you know, the Bob Geldof Mid-Year track. So, and of course did More Than I Can Say and Orchard Road for me and many others, you know. So he's somebody who moved over here just recently because his wife's Australian, Kate. They decided they'd had enough of London, so they wanted to move into, you know, the rural areas where Kate had come from, which is the Glamorgan Vale and the Lockyer Valley at the other side. So basically they've set up a place in a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, in this place called Marburg, up a rough old unsealed road. You drive up there and all of a sudden, well, I think of it as paradise now. You know, I just love going up there and working with John. So, and he and I have worked on a lot of stuff before. You know, he co-produced No Fracking Way with me. And so, you know, he's my partner in crime, I guess, when we get to finishing the album. Yeah, we spent a long time up there and had some marvelous days, you know, in the middle of nowhere, away from the urban life of Melbourne, you know, where we recorded the album at Mitch's studio. So it was a nice contrast, a nice way to kind of be objective about the record and really discover it, you know.
Sure.
Sitting in a I think it was a Pajero that I rented, playing back the tracks in the garden, and then, you know, and then escaping the snakes and walking back into the house. That's a way to check an album, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And just before I let you go, Leo, after this tour, is there plans to take the album on the road internationally?
Well, I hope so, yeah. I mean, look, the big difficulty these days, I mean, I'm not made of money. If I was, I'd have my own record company. I'd be releasing this myself, and, and I'd just be hooking you with distributors. Unfortunately, I can't afford to do that. I've put all my budget into making the bloody thing, so the rest of it I have to wait on these damned record companies. I don't want to say too much, but it's hard these days. But hopefully England's going to come in soon. They've heard the record and they're just making up their mind, deciding if I'm Simon Cowell enough for them. On we go, what can you say? But I think that it will work. I think it's going. I've got this feeling now, especially from the reaction I've been getting from the Australian press and everybody, people like yourself, and I think that I've got a record that will work really well internationally. So hopefully we'll just chip it all down as the year goes on. I have to be here for the next 3 months, obviously working in this territory, so it's very difficult to clone myself and be in two places at once. So it will get released later, I guess, there, and I've got some interest from China and Japan as well, so we'll see how it all unfolds.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on it once again. It's
Thanks, buddy.
Great to have some new material out there for you, and I'm sure that
I'm so glad everybody likes it. You never know what people are going to think because you work in a bubble, and today's been a great day because I've been talking to people who really seem to like it, which is great.
It's a brilliant piece of work, and I'm sure the tour will be sellouts wherever you go.
Yeah, it's going to be good. All right. Hopefully we'll see you in Melbourne, eh?
No worries. Thanks a lot, Leo.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.